guys with ginswagger. In this very quick tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can quickly integrate your Swagger documentation with your Gin server setup. So in one of our tutorials, we had created a structure for a RESTful API. So we're going to make use of it as to make our work very simple and quicker today. So in my desktop, I created a folder called Swagger tutorial. It's actually empty, so I'm going to just open this up, and from my GitHub repository, I'm just going to clone that project folder in there. So let me increase this so you can all see clearly. So let me make this bigger. So I'm just going to say git clone. Alright, so it's cloning and it's done. So let's come back here. We open this up. There we go. We now have our project directory here. So I could just drag this into my Visual Studio Code. So let me increase the size. So I'm just going to zoom in on this so it's big enough. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is let's look at the documentation of Swagger. Okay, so we need to install. Okay, let's use this because of the version of Go we're using. So let's come back here. Let's look for our terminal. So in my terminal, I'm going to run this installation as a go install swag latest. Okay, so having done this, let's check our. So let me close all these stuffs down. So let me open terminal. Let's check our documentation, swag init. So let's copy this back to the terminal and type swag init. Okay, we get this error, swag not found. So what do we do next? The next thing we're expected to do is to add our Go path to our env. So I'm using ZSH to access. Okay, so to add Go path to our env, let's do nano ZSHRC. I hope I typed that correctly. It's not correct. Sorry, I think I made a mistake there. So it's nano. Okay, I made a mistake. This is supposed to be after the /. Okay, so we can just easily, I'm just going to copy this from somewhere and paste. So take note of it. So this is how you get to add Go path to your env. So I'm gonna hit Ctrl X and yes, and I save that. That's not all. I have to source this to be sure that our changes take effect. Okay, so this is all we need to do as to ensure that next time we type swag init, it should work for us. But since our terminal was open, it might not work. So we need to close this and reopen our terminal again. So next time I type swag init, there we go. So right now it has generated a docs folder for us right in our project. Okay, so we are making progress. So the next thing we're going to do is to so the next thing we're going to do is to set up our documentation. So back to the documentation, let's follow the documentation and see what's expected of us. Okay, after swag init, step 4, we need to install ginswagger and files. So I can just copy this So here I'll paste that, hit run. So it's installing those two packages for us. So having done this, the next thing is to import them. So let's see where they were imported. So I'm going to skip all these other processes all the way to this one, step 5, and then we will come back to follow these other steps squarely. Let's copy these. I don't think I need a gene gonic. I won't be needing that. So in our CMD root, we can just paste this here. Okay, so I don't think we need this just the way it is. So what we do need is to do away with this and import the file properly. And since this package won't be directly needed, so the only thing we need from here is to initialize the or to call on the init method. So what we'll do is to put an underscore there as a blank identifier. So we are indirectly using its side effects instead of the actual functions and variables in here. So since we don't need all the functions and variables in here, we won't have to, you know, to call on docs there. So the next thing we're going to do here, it's basically to set up our configurations. Okay, remember in our previous tutorial, we had a method here called register route. So now we need this method to be able to register our route, the route where we hit to get our documentation. So what we'll do is to scroll down to here on line 30. We will now say server dot register route. So in this method, it takes the method, the path, and the handler. Okay, so we will now say server. The path is get. The method is get, and then the path we can say documentation /any, and then let's say ginswagger dot wrap handler, and then we say swagger files dot handler. So I'm going to save this. So after saving this, remember, okay, we had imported this, so I was going to just still do this, make tidy. Okay, just to be sure that everything is every package is installed successfully. So now let's do make run to run our API to see what we've got. Okay, our database is not running, so I'm going to pause this video to run our database and we'll be back here. Okay, so our database instance is now up and running. If you want to follow on how to set up your database, you can revert to the previous tutorial we had on how to set up a RESTful API structure. Okay, so I'm going to try to run this again and let's see what happens. Okay, it's running as expected. So let's go to our browser and then type in documentation /index.html. Okay, so here is our documentation, but there's nothing in it. So how do we get to add every other write-ups to it? So this is an indication that we are making progress. So back to our code base, we're going to go to our main file. So in our main file, before that, let's come back to the documentation and see what is expected of us. Okay, instead of let's look at this again. So we've got stuff like, okay, summary, comments. I'm looking for declarative, what's it called? Okay, declarative comment format. So I'm going to open this up. So you can see that with this is an example. So you need a title to your documentation. You use / a version, you use / you need all these comments, and of course there are a whole bunch of them here, so feel free to study these. So for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to show you how to quickly bootstrap. Okay, so in our main function, I'm going to say title. Let me call this title. I would say Swagger documentation tutorial. So we say add version. Remember, we had in the declarative format where we had what's it called? It seems I've gone too far away. Okay, let's look at the declarative comment format again. Version. Okay, this is how it's done. So let me copy this. So back to our code, I could just paste that. Okay, so description. I'm going to copy these. Description. This is sample server seller, whatever it is. You can have stuff as stuff like at contact. Is that necessary? No, let's say host. Let's grab these. Back to our code. At host, let's just call, or let's write it in full, 8080. And what next? I think we had something like base part or so. Let's look at the document, the API, the route. Let's look at the route again. Okay, we had something like API, then v1. Okay, so that's like a base part. So we're going to need that for our documentation. Let's go back to main, and then let's say add. This should start with capital letter. Let me be sure we're doing this the correct thing. Let's look for base part. Okay, there we go. Base part. So API v1, that's our base part. And then what else do we need? Okay, something like a contact name. Let's say ginswagger. And what else? Okay, we can work with these. So if I come here now, let me stop the server from running. I press Ctrl C. I'll say swag init. So it's generating the dog, and then we do make run, and let's reload this so you can see Swagger documentation tutorial. Oh, the tutorial is written in big letters, so you can see the base URL is added for us. Okay, we've got double / there. So what we need to do is to take one out from there. We'll save that, and I'm going to kill the server and run swag init again and run, reload this. Oh, that has taken effect. So now let's document the endpoints we created in our previous tutorial. So I'm just going to come down to the handler session. We had two endpoints, the create user and the get user. So to do this, I am going to just come up to create user. Let me push this guy down so you guys can see clearly. So here I'm just going to say add summary. Let's say creating a new user, add description. Forgot my description. This endpoint is for creating new users. Let's give it a tag. The tags. So we can just say it's auth. I'm going to explain what that does very soon. At accept. It's going to accept JSON. At produce, that's the outcome. It's going to be a JSON. At param, that means the data we're going to send to this API is going to, let's say, user body interfaces, because this is what we're going to give to the body. Interface is a JSON, so let's say it's true. Let's say user object. It's going to be a user object. So we can now say the outcome, if it's success. If it's success, it's going to be 200, and it's going to be an object. And what is the object we're returning on success? It's going to be, where is it? Okay, this is it. So I'm just going to copy these. Okay, so I'll save this, and okay, I can just copy these as well to my, so here I say this gets a new user. This endpoint is used for fetching a new user. The tag is still going to be in auth. Accept is going to be JSON. Produce is going to be JSON. Param, let's say param, since we're not paginating these, so we could just say success rather. Let's take this out. I don't think we won't be needing these. Okay, and the next thing we're definitely going to need here, I didn't add earlier, is the router. So let's say, what was the route we used earlier? So let's check that out. In our route, we used okay, user. Okay, so we'll just do this. Let's go back there. Let's see what, oh no, I think I didn't get that right. So let me copy these, put that in there. So this is going to be email, and it's a get request. So we're going to do that there. And I don't think we had router here, so we need to include it at router. So what did we use for that? Register. So we're going to have register there, and it's a post request. Okay, so the next thing we'll do, let's save this and see what our documentation looks like. So I'm just going to say swag init and make run. So let's refresh these. There you go. That's our API documentation. To create a new user, email, full name, username, this is what you will get. And then if you click on getting a user, of course it's going to accept a parameter. So we did this wrongly, so we're going to correct this. Okay, so let's go back to documentation and see what we need from here. Okay, so we actually need the param property from here. So now we can come back here. Maybe we just do it here. So let's say at param email, at param email. So let's say the path is going to be a string, a true. Let's say users email. So let me save this. I'll close this, swag init, make run. Let's see if our server is running. And okay, yeah, there we go. So we're able to fix that. So this is how to quickly create documentations for your Gin API. It's that simple and straightforward. So I'm going to push this to the GitHub repository. I'll create a new branch for it. Feel free to get it and